Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how watch history affects today's market. Hey, we're back. It's Thursday. The trading desk, you guys know me. My name's Jason Main. I have a co-guest,
Alaina Lackman.
Alaina is one of our traders as well and has been on the show regularly. This is great. You're back.
Somehow convinced me to come back.
With a little notice.
That's right.
But today we're going to talk about the overall topic we're going to get into is how the history of a watchmaker can inspire enough confidence to kind of set today's market prices, which is interesting, and we kind of all assume this and kind of know this from the back end, but you never really take a time to dive into it and kind of analyze. So we thought it would be a cool topic.
Excited
Yes?
to chat about it, yes.
All right. We're going to go, we do wrist shots, usually right off roll.
You
Would
start
like to go
your
first?
show. Nope.
So, something you guys haven't seen yet, and I'm enjoying quite a bit. This was very, very generously gifted to me by a good friend / client. What you're looking at there is probably one of the coolest Seikos that I have definitely owned. This is the Topper edition. So special 500-piece limited edition, sapphire cap bezel, sapphire crystal instead of the hard Lex, and then basically like all the black surrounds, black markers. So pretty cool. Thing is a torch at night, just loom for like 4 or 5 hours. It's been pretty cool. I'm excited for it. So
Do you wear it a lot?
I got it on Monday,
Oh, you just got it.
and it hasn't left my wrist. So yeah,
Cool.
it's been
Took
pretty
the place
good.
of your Bulgari, huh?
Yeah, it's back in the box.
All right.
So
Got to rotate them around.
Yeah. How about you?
In preparation for our conversation today, IWC Portuguese Chrono Bronte. Always love this watch. Like it in the regular Chrono, like it in the Bronte. Pretty sharp looking, cool complication.
Yeah, pretty piece, rose gold, matches the rest of what you're rocking. Ensemble.
Yeah. I like a lot of the color combinations, but this is obviously, I always like gold with black. Just kind of a cool piece. I think, versatile, can be worn for dress. I always talk about versatility in watches. I think it's something I'm personally really attracted to. And this piece, lives up to that.
It's got the Santoni strap on it, so you
It
could
does have a cool Santoni strap on it.
almost flip it around and it'll match your
Exactly.
Boston.
My orange or red shirt. We had a discussion about this before.
There's a
we went
pole
on, but-
in the box. Is that red
Is
or
it
orange?
red or is it orange? I think it's red.
Somewhere in between.
All right.
Anyways, moving on. We special treat. We are doing top 5. I don't know if you
I
knew
love
we were
this.
doing top 5, but
No,
we
but
are.
I love it.
All
It
right.
always surprises me every time.
Well, it's kind of the idea. All right.
Ooh.
So pretty diverse. Look at that. RM at number 1, Felipe Massa. So the number 1 RM special edition Massa.
Do we normally start with 1? I thought you normally start at 5. You want to go the other way? All right.
It's my show.
All
I'll
right.
do what I
Sorry.
want. So yeah, Felipe Massa, very cool RM. Not something you see in the standard inventory. Generally, when we have an RM, it's kind of like an RM11 basic titanium. This kind of a cool piece. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, that's the watch. Peter Bell, shout out to Peter Bell. That's your watch. Probably about 120 grand too much though. But fantastic watch for what it is. Is it worth 140 grand? I mean, we've talked about RM bubbles before, and I don't know, but
Sometimes I'm surprised when RMs even make it to our website.
you know what? Yeah, 140 grand, but you pitch that to the right few people,
And it's
and
gone.
they just don't even make the website. It's a really, really cool piece. It's a lot of money.
It is a lot
I
of
don't.
money.
I mean, for me, for what it is, for the complication, and I know it's cool. I know it's comfortable.
I feel like with the tennis, the Open and stuff going on, people are paying attention to RM right now.
I guess.
So
I mean,
guess
so
it
this
makes
is a
sense.
brand that fits perfectly what we're going to talk into later. So we'll reference it
Alright.
back into that conversation. But number 2, how about it? I'll give that one to you.
Rolex Daytona. Nothing surprises me about this. I like that it's a steel Daytona, not a ceramic. Good old classic over there. Black dial, which is my preference. Not surprised it's up there.
So the 116520, right? So still in-house, but steel bezel. I like the 116520 better than the ceramic. I've said it before. I think the ceramic is a good attempt at making the watch a men's watch again, like a larger. Whereas I feel like this watch is pretty commonly interchangeable. And I know a lot of women personally. We have a few very high up women in the company that currently wear
There are, yes.
Daytonas. So it's a good piece. Definitely has that sporting heritage pedigree with the racing. I think if I was going to own this case or a non-ceramic case, I'd want the El Primero movement, which I guess is kind of everybody's opinion since the prices are higher. So maybe this is the better value prop, but
in line with, again, what we're going to talk about in a bit, I think the ceramic Daytona is kind of an attempt to make the watch more contemporary. I think it's a classic watch, obviously, and steel will never go out of style. It will always be something. But adding kind of ceramic, which I think is an innovative material, and, the creation of ceramic is an innovative process. So it's an attempt to make things more contemporary, which is cool. To me, they're really different watches. I'm with you, though. I would want a steel one. Just plain old steel classic.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I like the piece, but no surprise that it's a Daytona and it's being clicked on. Yeah, what is funny is, though, that the RM is number 1 and then the sub's all the way at 4. But first, we'll get to number 3, giving the RM a run for its money price-wise. And I would argue a better value than the RM in terms of complication, is this beautiful, beautiful perpetual calendar. So obviously full calendar, moon face, precious metal piece, so you're getting value there. So not only is it fighting above its price range in terms of complication, but you're also getting substance with the metal. You're getting the Patek name. You're getting a watch that will obviously outlive you in hundreds of years.
I was going to say a long-term investment. I guess it could be argued, but
the whole you don't ever really own a Patek. You just pass it along. RM's like you do own that RM and have fun with that later.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so number 3, that's actually kind of interesting. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, essentially steel sport watches, and then 2 high-end pieces.
Complicated, yeah.
It's kind of a cool mix of 5 pieces. Number 4, everybody knows what that is. Just one hell of a durable daily kind of everything watch.
Tank watch.
Yeah. So Submariner 7950. Obviously, Submariners get clicked on all day long. They get sold. I mean, we sell. I don't even know how many Submariners. A lot. I mean, I think we sold. What was it, like 82 Rolexes last month or something like that?
It's interesting too. Again, the ceramic bezel versus an older piece. All of them seem to be popular, and all of them seem to sell, and people have preferences over what they like and what they don't like.
It's kind of an all boats rise situation, especially with the Submariner and the Daytona steel pieces. So if I'm looking at that watch, and I personally, and I've said as much on the last 2 episodes or so, like I personally probably wouldn't have wanted to only own a non-ceramic, like an older generation sub by itself. But after having a ceramic sub, like I can go back and say, oh, that's kind of cool.
I'm going to be honest, I'm very much considering buying myself a ceramic sub.
You should.
You're
going to get the non-date and be one of the cool kids, or?
No, I'm going to go date.
All right.
I know, everybody says go non-date.
Just a little edgier, a little cooler.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the function of a date. There's an actual real reason why you need a date.
Is there?
I think so.
Okay. Well, that's a great segue into our number 5 piece, which is Grande date. So not only do you need a date, but you need a giant one. This is actually a really cool piece. So what's perplexes me here is it's on waitlist, and it's still the top 5 clicked watch on the website. So I mean, you're gonna assume that it's sold prior to it going up here, but that's weird because we wouldn't have screenshot this. All right, so the watch is gone, right? It's on waitlist, which, by the way, if you don't know, we have this waitlist feature on the website, which you can click, put your information, and the next one that we get, we'll reach out to you. So this is the Gen 2. So in my personal opinion, my favorite configuration for the Chrono. For the non-Chrono, I do prefer the Gen 3.
Interesting.
I think the case shape on the Gen 3, pretty much the Gen 3 is a better watch in almost every single way, except for when it comes to the Chrono, in my opinion, the dial layout and the way it looks. So I like the Gen 2. But, so yeah, this is the Gen 2 Grande date chronograph, steel bracelet. Just kind of a cool, timeless Vacheron. It's almost the pinnacle of Vacheron. So we're going to talk about,
it's interesting how well those watches fit into the conversation we're about to have.
It is interesting.
I was thinking
and we didn't know
in
what they were
particular about
before.
the overseas.
Okay.
When I walked out of the office a couple minutes ago.
Fantastic. All right,
Good
so that's
segue.
top 5. segue into the main conversation. I just do want to let you guys know, too, we're going to have 15 minutes or so, I guess, depending on how much time we have left for questions at the end of the episode. For Alaina, I'm sure you don't want to ask me anything. You can address all your questions to Alaina, and she will answer them.
I don't even know how to work this.
It's a computer.
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyhow, so yeah, Q&A at the end of the episode. Leading to the main conversation, I don't know if you guys saw the thumbnail at the beginning, but essentially, and I kind of outlined it in the beginning of the conversation as well as Alaina, we're going to be talking about what, at its heart, right, we talk about all the time, like what the market's doing, what the market is at, the secondary market, the bubbles, all that stuff. And then we don't really take the time to kind of hone in on what makes that market exist and the foundation of why that market is what it is. And if you're going to go back, you go all the way back, it's brand history, right? So everything from the confidence that you have in a manufacturer, everything from, how capable they from a warranty standpoint, them making the watches, we put a lot of faith in manufacturers and in pricing in watches, in whether or not they're in-house and what their capabilities are at producing movements, and all of that goes back to the history of the watchmaker, right? So the idea of today's show is that history
and brand identity.
The confidence in the brand in a whole, right? So, yeah, exactly. Not history specifically like this date and this date and this date, but who they are and what they stand for and why they are what they are now, as opposed to some brands, and we're going to break this down a little bit better, but as opposed to some brands that either don't have that history or they have actual legitimate history but don't have a foot to stand on in terms of brand identity and kind of what they have to do now to figure it out.
Or have strayed from their brand identity.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Fantastic. So you guys know we're going to have to do it. We're going to go Rolex first, right?
Okay.
The most iconic, right? The king. They got the crown. They hold all the trophies. They hold all the patents. They hold 3 out of the top 5 most clicked watches on the website for not by mistake. So yeah, Rolex has pretty much an untarnished reputation, right? So besides, you tell me, but besides all of the budget and everything they've spent in the last who knows how many years, certainly since I've been into watches, it's always been all the advertisement, all of the posh, all of the when you're successful, you buy yourself a Rolex. So that's
brand recognition,
not a mistake, right?
Absolutely not.
Give us a little insight as to your opinion on how that works.
So when you look at the market today, the major conversations that are going on are Rolex and Patek. It's very rare that we, have a long conversation about, although we do, about, what's going on with IWC or JLC or Hublot. For mainstream and a lot of the collectors and a lot of the people that we're talking about Rolex and Patek. And to me, both of those brands have just stayed true to their identity. For example, when watches started to get really huge and were, 47, 48 millimeters, those two brands were like, we're not going there, we're not doing that. I guess the largest watch Rolex ever made is a 41 millimeter. Is that
44.
Correct? 44.
With
oh yeah,
the
deep sea. Sorry,
yeah.
You're correct. 44. But never, into something that's a 49 or just outrageous. Same with Patek. They've kind of stayed true to who they were and who they are, and it has never really changed. And I think, as consumers, we want to feel consistency and we want to feel trust in the people we're buying for, especially when it's that much money. So to me, that has a lot to do with why they are where they are right now. I think marketing, they've done a great job, particularly Patek. We referenced it today. Their marketing campaigns are fantastic, and I think that has a lot to do with why they are where they are. The other thing is from a design perspective, and I was thinking about this a lot. There's kind of a core line that these brands do, these successful brands, excuse me. So like for Rolex, we've had a Submariner, we had GMT, we've had these watches forever. And over the years, they've gone and they've innovated on materials and, upgraded movement and upgraded cases and changed it. But they've kept the core of what the watch is, sure, which I think is why people are comfortable buying it.
The DNA,
exactly. And I think that says a lot to the consumer.
When something's not broken, you don't fix it.
100%.
Right? So these brands have the wherewithal to say, I am Patek, I am Complication, I am Perpetual Calendar, I am the pinnacle of dress watches, and this is what we do. We're here for a reason. This, exactly to your point, we referenced, like, you never really own a Patek, you hand it down. That's genius.
It is genius.
Somebody made that up, and it was genius. The new weekly calendar, someone, either it's true with the handwriting on the board,
is that true?
or somebody
story,
made it up, but it
knows?
is genius. And they said, you know what, we're going to roll with it. And it's stories like that. And really, I mean, for watches in general, those stories are what sell the brand. They might not sell the watch in that moment, but they sell you on the brand. So later when you're looking at it and you go, oh, yeah, this is a Patek, it's the watch,
But then it's interesting. So you start to ask yourself, a brand like JLC, steeped in history, one of the oldest manufacturers, how come JLC doesn't have the same recognition and the same interest and the same popularity and the same market share that a brand like Patek does?
So I think it's mismanagement. I think that over the years we've gotten to the point where, like, maybe that model didn't sell as well. Instead of holding to something that's true, like a true Reverso, let's throw a 1931 tribute out there. Let's try this. Let's figure out what the next step is. And it's, instead of holding to your core beliefs and who you are as a company, like, maybe we make another model and another one, and let's do this brand.
See, I disagree, because I actually think it's the exact opposite. So for a brand like JLC and IWC, I'll say, they've been producing the same models for so many years. And it's like, there's so many out there. And, I was talking to somebody about it today in the office. If you decide that you want an IWC 7-day, a Portuguese 7-day, awesome watch, love that watch. If you decide that you want one and you start your search, like, they're available everywhere under the sun.
So the fact that they're readily available takes away from the luxury
100%.
aspect of the watch. Luxury is scarcity. So, but my point is that you have to decide you want a Portuguese after looking at a Portofino, after looking at a Pilot, after looking at so there's too many lines. And it's fine if you make that watch, discontinue it, move on to something new, try and figure out where your foothold is. But if you're a brand like Breitling and you have, like, 100 SKUs, it's just too much.
Although they've started to pare it down a little. They understood.
Right, so Panerai, same thing. Way too many SKUs. Not to mention, and I love Panerai, don't get me wrong, but not to mention that you're already dealing with the aspect that, like, your model numbers don't quite make a lot of sense to people. Your, the way, I do think in the last couple of years with, like, nailing down those three cases, the Radomir, the 1950, and the regular Luminor, they took a big step. But there's just, you have to do your best to educate customers and say, this is what we make at our heart, this is what we are. So, like, for Rolex, that's the Submariner.
I think it's about evolving, too. Again, I was thinking in particular about the Vacheron Overseas today. And, there's been how many versions of the Overseas? 3?
There's 3 major generations, but there's probably a dozen of iterations in between.
And I think Vacheron actually did a really wonderful job when they released the newest version of the Overseas, because they tried to innovate. They made the integration of the strap, which I think is really helpful and something that people really like. I think they didn't stray too far from the DNA of the watch, but they did make it a more modern aesthetic, and they kind of kept the core colors. Like, they didn't do too much, but they did some really nice innovation. It's similar to the way I feel about Rolex. Like, they didn't change the Submariner. They put a more modern ceramic bezel on it.
I agree with you 100%, and that's why the Gen 3 is an awesome watch. But the problem is that's the only Vacheron that you can hang your hat on.
Yeah. Like,
the historiques and all that stuff, it's like quirky and kind of cool, but it's not how you make a brand.
But is that just fad-based? Like, right now, sport watches are in. That's what people like. That's what people are wearing. Will it go back one day to people wanting to wear, dress strap watches? I think it will, because we're watching it. We watch the climb and the decrease of case sizes all the time. We went up, like, there were Zeniths that were being produced at like 49 millimeters. Who can wear that? It's insane. Right. But we're watching them come down. I think it's part of, I actually think Panerai's doing pretty well.
I do too.
But, it's going to be Panerai's, it's going to be a tough thing for Panerai. They're big watches. But there's, we watch the Due, we watch them come out with smaller. They know what's happening. I do think that the sport watch thing is a trend. Do I always think that luxury sport watches will be popular? Probably. But I do think we'll see people want to go back into more traditional kind of dress watches.
I do agree with you on that. I think that the 42 millimeter submersible, by the way, is a fantastic launch for them. I think it changes the game in terms of who can wear a submersible.
That watch is awesome.
It is awesome.
It's so awesome.
You should get one.
I know, that would be
the
a cool
42
watch.
submersible in rose gold is
so
fire.
good.
So, but my point is that if I'm Vacheron and I hit the nail on the head with a 3, right? And I don't have a footing to stand on like we were talking about in terms of history, I can't keep making historiques because that's what I used to do. You got to figure out, you're a business. You got to figure out what works. So if I'm Paddock, I can keep making annual calendars and perpetual calendars because that's what I do and that's been proven to work. If I'm Vacheron, you got to pivot and you got to say, listen, we're having a lot of success with this. Let's cut true 2 dress lines and let's focus on 1. Is my point. And that's what would make Vacheron in 5 years a solid brand to stand on some legging. And I said the same thing with Breitling. We've said the same thing with Panerai. And it does come down to even Cartier. And Cartier has done a fantastic job in the last year or so.
I think Cartier is right up there with Patek and Rolex, to be quite honest with you. Like, they've stayed true to their core. They've innovated. They've moved into in-house movements. But, Cartier, they control their market.
They do a great job. When they overproduce, they had a very aggressive buyback on the secondary market to control. So it shows that they understand what the market is. The thing with Cartier is they did step outside of like making too many models, too many watches, overproducing, but they did the responsible thing, the right thing, and they corrected it. And they scaled down the models. They came out with some really, really cool new designs that were received really well.
And they've gone back to their heritage. They've reintroduced watches that have done well for many, many years, the Panther and all that. So again, I think it's staying true to the core of who you are and figuring out how to innovate and make it interesting again. I think the Cartier model is interesting and a good one. You produce, you discontinue, and then you reintroduce it and get the excitement
but
up there again.
Cartier's ideology there is like they don't discontinue it until it's at its peak. It's like this watch is on fire, guess what? You can't have it anymore.
Yeah, well.
And, what did we say about scarcity? Cartier is probably one of the best brands that, like, for not a lot of money, you get that regal feeling like you opened, a very, very expensive box. It's like, I don't know. It's like opening a Louis Vuitton on a Coach budget or something like that. You know what I mean?
Getting that red box, yeah.
It's a cool watch, and they definitely make some cool models now. I'm a big fan of the Chrono version of the new Santos. I think it's a pretty cool watch. But so Cartier wasn't something I initially thought we'd be talking about in the
I told you I was going to surprise you.
But it actually, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a good run. There are a couple brands that are towards the bottom of that, which is unfortunate, and like Roger Dubuis, I think is a fantastic heritage watchmaker who has, they have a lot of, a lot of steam behind the brand and heritage, but they've just lost their way. They just don't quite know where to go.
I think it will be interesting, though, because I think they're a brand that it's, they come up and they come down, and there's interest and there's not interest, and it peaks and it wanes. And I think we will find ourselves talking about Roger Dubuis in a big way at some point. I think there's some interesting things. Their vintage pieces are awesome.
Yes. The key thing is all the vintage stuff is awesome. So all like the bi-retros, all the, even the old Octos, all that stuff is awesome. And I have a soft spot for that. And I actually respect the brand quite a bit. I just feel like the whole we're going to go after RM isn't the right play.
Agreed.
And I just feel like they're wandering around the desert right now. One day they might find their way back.
But you know what? A lot of brands are. It's a tough market out there. Like, when people are only interested in 2 brands, like, it's hard to figure out where you fit and how to keep going.
So if Roger Dubuis tomorrow dropped the brand new Sympathy in a retro inspired case, in that case with the the shaped crystal and everything and a complication, the world would light on fire. But instead, they want to do like forged 46 millimeter carbon cases with skeleton movements, and
that's so true. You would have such like collectors clamoring.
On fire.
Everybody would want that.
But
if you did that. Roger Dubuis, are you listening?
I mean, so one of two things. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can offer me a job there, or just send me a royalty check for that idea, and we'll move on. But the point is not to rag on these brands, right? No. It's not to say like, how dare you do this, or ha, look at you. The point is like, we generally hope because there's so much history there and how important it is to us that they find their way.
100%. And I'd love to hear from, everybody watching out there. Like, are you interested? Do you want to talk about these brands? Like, like the conversations just are so driven towards Patek and Rolex, but there are so many other cool watches out there.
Well, I've actually had a lot of really, really cool conversations with some of my clients, some new collectors, in that the opinion of, let's look for more value in other places is becoming more relevant. A lot of people are starting to go, well, what if I took 10 years back and I started looking at pieces that when I first started, I know I do it when I'm looking at watches now. It's like when I first started really wanting that watch, like what's available now?
It's interesting though, because I feel like those customers and those clients are no longer gravitating towards things like, well-known brands like IWC and JLC, and they're going for more niche brands. I mean, I think FP Journe is a great example of, the Patek customer, the person that traditionally liked the watchmaking that was being done from that manufacturer is now shifting towards sort of a more niche, specialized,
for
smaller,
sure. Small manufacturer,
yeah.
limited production, scarce, right? Precious metal pieces, obtainable price points. There is a very, very solid collector curve where pieces that you can't get anymore have already shown that they've shot up. So there's some equity there in terms of being a collector. The man's still alive. There's some aspect there of what happens when he dies.
It's going to be crazy.
So, I mean, the brand is, it's destined for great things. But I've said before, the Senograph is hands down my favorite Journe. And I think that when eventually, and sadly when he goes, he's going to be known as the best chronograph watchmaker that ever existed. And for me, the Senograph is so beautiful in simplicity in its layout that unless he comes out with something that's just absolutely blows that away, which is probably tomorrow. He'll drop it tomorrow because I know for a fact he watches the show and he likes Alaina. So, but FB Journe, Laurent Ferrier, another fantastic
100%
brand that we don't really talk about a lot. Moser and some of their stuff. The Pioneer, I absolutely love that watch. It's a little too big. The Pioneer was a little smaller. I think I'd really, really want one. But,
and then I think also for like the guys that are looking for value in other pieces, then it becomes a treasure hunt. They're looking for those vintage Roger Dubuis pieces. They're looking for like some scarce, weird, limited edition from something. And then it becomes about the hunt so much. But the contemporary world and what's being produced is it's got to be tough.
Yeah, so it's definitely, I think the conversation can get a little bit deeper than this, and I don't know that, I mean, that might be a whole nother show, but the idea that the for whatever degree of confidence you have in a history can shape the market. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the fact that I like Roger Dubuis better than maybe you do.
I like Roger Dubuis.
Well, not specifically, just using you as an example. So maybe I have more confidence in their history because I like the sympathy, or I like the pieces that are 20 years old, the retros. And maybe you don't have the confidence that the brand will come back. Well, that just means that I'm going to go be able to snag up great deals. Whereas, you might be more interested in current, ceramic subs. It's a value proposition for me, and vice versa, right? Like I'm not the guy competing to buy your sub.
It also just brings it back to like, why do people buy watches? Like, what are you doing?
Because they're awesome.
Are you buying them because you love watchmaking, or are you buying them because you're looking for a cool complication because you like the mechanical part of it, or you're buying a watch because you want it to hold its value? It all comes back to that. Yes.
Value props. I mean, so for me personally, it's what we do for a living. So it's kind of hard to say it's not important to me. But there's watches that I own, like the Octo Finissimo. I have no mistake in the fact that like that's not going to appreciate in value, but it's freaking awesome, and I love it.
It is awesome. I love that watch.
So something like, and then there's stuff like this, like the Seiko. This actually has appreciated in value since it came out. And is it a lot? No, but it was a limited edition. You can't get it anymore. But it doesn't mean you're not going to wear the watch. That's the thing. So to answer your question, like I'm fascinated by mechanical things, by the story behind things. I think that like as a human being, that's kind of how we're all driven, and collecting and having something to cherish. But for me, the tool aspect of it and being something that actually works.
See, I'm such an aesthetic person, and like I like the finishing, and I like the innovation of materials. Like, say whatever you want about AP. Their videos when they show like pouring ceramics and stuff, like I love it.
Yeah, they do some great cinematography. The
their
frosted gold stuff.
It's so cool. Like
It's kind of like,
I love the finishing. I love the aesthetics of watches.
You know the Instagram videos that are like where you just watch it, like doesn't matter what it is, like they're cutting cake or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's like that when you watch them,
Or,
like frosted gold.
clay.
Yeah, exactly.
Calligraphy. I like all of that.
It's awesome, and I think actually FP Journ's Instagram has some really, really awesome videos of them like laying dials and like pouring enamel and stuff like that. It's very, very cool.
The gem setting is so cool. If you ever watched the videos of the gem setting, even watching them set like hour markers.
Yeah.
I went to the AP factory and I watched them set like the hour markers on stuff. Like it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then for I know you know because we've talked about it before, but like so for FP Journe, the aspect of like one person makes your watch from start to finish is freaking awesome.
So cool.
I think that's so cool. Like you don't get that anywhere else. I mean, there are some, Mercedes AMGs that are like built by one person all the way through. But the degree in which you have to have demand, you have to be able to make dials, make movements, make engravings, and then like. So there are certain things, just to go off on a little tangent, like with the FP Journe, there are certain things that are like cataloged. Like they know who made the movement because of the number. But then there's certain things like refinishing, like finishing on bridges and stuff like that aren't cataloged. But because of like under a microscope, the twist, they can tell exactly who did the watch.
It's really cool.
Because the idea is that it's handmade and that the flaw in each turn tells them exactly who it is. It's nuts.
And when you go to the factories, like it makes so much more sense, like of how impressive it is.
I'm not even doing it justice.
That one person could go through and make it all. It's really pretty cool.
It is very, very cool. So I think we should just buy FP Journes. You and I. We'll get matching ones.
I would love one, yeah.
Elegantes for everybody. All
Go
right.
fund me.
All right. So I think that does the gist of the conversation some justice. I think it's a very cool topic.
I do too. That was interesting.
Yeah. So hopefully a little bit of context outside of this watch sells for this and this watch buys for that. And, we love this brand. So I'm going to leave the last, 15 minutes or so. I think we have some time. If you guys have some questions queued up, if you could fire them off in the comment box. And
I finally found the comment box, by the way. It took me a couple minutes, but I found it on here.
All right. So, yeah, if you could fire off questions, Alaina will be answering all of them. And I am just going to read. This is the awkward.
That's how it's going to work?
Yeah. So, no, but this is the part of kind of why I hate doing live questions.
Okay.
Because...
You're going to ask me something.
No, there's just this, quiet while we're both reading, and it kills me that, as a viewer, I would expect...
Break?
Yeah, so... anyhow, I'm just going to start reading. If they're stupid, then that's your guys' fault. Seedweller or Yachtmaster instead of sub, ? Given the markups. No, because, so Yachtmaster, I guess, makes sense. They sell a little bit under retail. Seedwellers are still pretty high. And I think at the end of the day, the Submariner's the more iconic watch. And if you're going to spend...
Which Yachtmaster, though?
I would assume he's talking about a steel Yachtmaster 40. Although I absolutely fell in love with the new 42 white gold on Oyster Flex.
That watch is cool.
We had one the other day. And
yeah, that watch is cool.
I should sell some stuff and buy this. But anyhow, moving on. Question, is this a summer slowdown in the watch market or a recession? I think... you can definitely give your opinion on this, but I would say that based on what time of the year it is and how strong this year has been till now, that for me, it's probably a little bit of a summer slowdown. I actually had a fantastic freaking month last month, so this month, not so much, but,
Notoriously, the beginning of September is a tough month for most of retail. I think the end of the summer and, people are getting back to work, getting their kids back to school, doing all of that. I don't think we're in a recession yet.
Yeah, I think it's
probably coming.
It's coming. Watch the market, but
everybody knows it's coming, but yeah, I think it's just the summer slowdown. But we've been pretty lucky; it hasn't really been that slow.
Yeah, don't buy watches right now unless it's throwaway money. You don't buy. We've always said you don't buy watches as an investment, but if you
buy watches. What do you mean?
If you're not going to get hurt, then buy it.
I think you should always buy watches.
Any luxury asset, if you're not going to get hurt, then buy it. If you can afford take it. But I wouldn't buy a Grand Seiko now because you think it's going to appreciate. which is actually a perfect segue into Chris Gross's question, which I think is a fantastic question. How do you think Grand Seiko plays into this conversation? They easily have as much history as Rolex, and they seem not to have the same faith from the market, which is actually, I would say, somewhat true in terms of faith. I think that the market's turned around a lot. People actually, from the people I speak to, respect Grand Seiko quite a bit. I think that they have in terms of people opening up their minds, there's probably a long way to go in terms of making it, palpable household name. But they make fantastic watches. Their movements are scary accurate, like plus minus 1 second.
They're kind of like a sleeper brand.
I think
they come out with limited editions and stuff that sell out and trade above retail, and it's not a brand that's like hugely talked about. I guess unless you're really into it, but fantastic. And they have such cool, like...
They pay attention to the secondary market. They rebranded, with the whole Grand Seiko thing and the badging, they rebranded everything to kind of take one step forward into changing the, people's perspective of them. I like the watches a lot. I do think that they could probably shake up styling a little bit. A lot of their watches kind of look very similar to me. And unfortunately... And I want to like a lot of Grand Seikos, but unfortunately, most of them look a little like old manish to me. So like the very like subtle dials with the subtle bracelets.
It's almost like Panerai though, when you know. Like people have preferences on things they like and the pieces they like and the story behind the watch they like.
Yeah, I would like to see something from them that's a little sportier, kind of like the new Quartz that we just got, GMT, but in automatic, or let's say like a chronograph that's like that ceramic bezel piece they have that's not 44 millimeters.
I think they could do some cool things with the accessories too, like a different style bracelet or some really cool straps, and that would take it to the next level because they do. You're right. The aesthetic is pretty similar on a lot of the models, so something to shake it up and make it look a little different.
So changing straps would be cool. Their actual finishing is phenomenal. Like the dial finishing, the case finishing, all that stuff, top notch. I think that price point, like a lot of people will say they got a little bit expensive, a little big for their britches, but I think when you take a step back and you realize how much work goes into the watch, it might be a little bit ahead of its time. Like in a year or two, we might say, okay, that makes sense at $7,000. But some of the new pieces, the new dress pieces with their hand-done dials are fantastic. All right. Tim Massa sunglasses. Regular viewers always in the comment. Inanimate object, but can speak. Grand Seiko needs a 40 millimeter dive watch now. I think that would work. I think either like a 39 or 40 millimeter. All right.
It turned hard. It's so hard to pay attention and read the comments.
Two, like there's also a second sub conversation going on in the chat, which is awesome for these guys. But like I'm trying to read the things and they're just skipping.
It does. It makes it hard. You gotta really. Somebody mentioned Nomos.
Nomos
is an awesome brand.
I think Nomos is an awesome value proposition brand. I think if I had somebody graduating college and I needed to buy them their first like mechanical watch, that'd probably be where I start, either that or Ors. But I do very much feel like Nomos is a brand that you start with. I don't think anybody ends there.
Fair enough.
But let's see here. 5 to 7K is too low for VC. They just came out with the 56 as a new entry level. I don't know. So time will tell. I mean, the 56 is kind of not really that well received, but I don't know. I guess as a brand, they got to figure out if that's the price range they want to be at. I don't really think they need to be at $5,000 to $7,000. I think you hover right around $15,000 to $17,000, and you make yourself a ton of money. But see any questions in there you want to take a stab at?
It's legitimately so hard for me to read these and pay attention and have a conversation. Multitasking, not my strong suit here. Somebody's asking me if I ever think about watches to accessorize my outfits. Of course, but more important is I feel like to have one or two watches that you can wear with almost everything. It's probably not you're like, I don't care.
No, it's not that I don't care. I think it's interesting. I mean, so like guys do the same thing, like straps, or if I'm wearing a blue shirt, like I'll break out the Bulgari because I know it works.
I guess it's the reason why they make the majority of women's watches in quartz, because we take them off and we put them down, which I actually do appreciate and can understand, because it is very annoying if you take it off for a couple days and then you have to reset it, and God forbid it's a calendar or something complicated. But you know what? Worth it.
God forbid you should have to learn and interact with the watch that you paid money for. JBO Surf question. Jason and Alaina, your next watch? Question mark.
I told you, I think I'm going to buy him a ceramic date sub.
Non-date.
I think a date.
I think I'm going to convince her.
Either that or like a gold Cartier tank, just like an everyday. I wear a ton of gold. Obviously, gold watches are expensive, but I wear a ton of gold, so I am thinking about that.
We've been talking about that Cartier tank for like 6 months.
It's classic. It never goes out of style. Like, I also so I get really uncomfortable. I don't like wearing bracelet watches to work because it hits on my computer. I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but for me, strap watches are much more comfortable. So always looking for something.
And I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to hold out for a Smurf. I think it's my next watch. I've been
that's an interesting
contemplating
one.
it. Yeah. Liked it for a long time. Not cheap.
Yeah, none of them are.
I'll wait till they drop out, and probably won't happen. But anyways, all right, I think I'm going to call that a show with our very special guest, Alaina. Thank you for coming back.
You're welcome. Thanks for giving me a heads up on it.
Yeah, I think it was pretty good. So thanks for logging in, chat. Please like the video, subscribe if you're not.
Follow us on Instagram. I'm sure everybody
Instagram,
follows
Evo_watches.
I promise I'll start posting soon.
Okay. What is it?
Watch Girl A.
Watch Girl A. There you go. All right, and if you haven't subscribed and you like the videos, please do so. I think we just eclipsed 90 grand. So next weekend 100,000. But all right, guys, thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good one.